and thank you for watching Two Wheels, One Compass. This vlog is about Earth Day. Earth Day is actually, to me, a day of the year that I don't really know is coming around until it's real close. You don't see in Target or Walmart, you don't see in like stores a bunch of Earth Day stuff. There's no way to like traditionally dress for Earth Day, and there's typically not specials that come around during Earth Day. There's not an Earth Day season. The holiday on the whole is just a little bit different, but there is a lot to it, actually. Earth Day is the largest celebrated secular holiday in the world, with more than 1 billion people that celebrate it worldwide in at least 193 countries. It was started in 1970. It was originally supposed to be an every 10-year thing. The political climate that Earth Day rose out of was kind of in the late 1960s, early 70s. The first one was in 1970, but at that time period, environmentalism was at an all-time high. It was right after the Silent Spring. The Silent Spring and many other contributing factors led to an environmentalist movement. The Environmental Protection Agency rose out of this period. See, the thing about industry is it's not their goal to pollute. They're not trying to pollute as much as possible. They're trying to get money, and as a result of that, pollution ends up becoming part of the problem. It's the byproduct. The more they can pollute, the more money they're potentially making. It's that simple. It costs money to regulate pollution. And the one thing that, as a whole, society decided is that they were going to prioritize the environment over money. Even if it was at the cost of industry, they believed that lakes not being set on fire and children not being born with deformities, protection of water, air quality, all of that was deemed more important. 1970 was the first Earth Day, and then it happened again in 1980, 1990, and then at a certain point, it ended up becoming a yearly thing. The reason for that is because it's right after spring break and right after Easter. It doesn't really conflict with anything, and it's typically a nice day. So Earth Day originally had begun as a day of protest and celebration to the planet. Any environmental movements, such as marches and protests, were to be celebrated on this day. And what ended up happening this year is a particularly strong year for political protest movements. The biggest protests that I can remember in my lifetime were the 2010 Tea Party movements. It was supposed to be against the Obamacare, Affordable Care Act extensions, the government regulations that were made onto people. The individual mandate that said that people had to buy health care was seen as a government overreach. And I'm not going to lie, and you can argue this, but right-wing media had quite a part to play in hyping the level of uncertainty and vulnerability that people felt as a result of that healthcare plan. Now, regardless of how you feel about the Affordable Care Act, or whether it's helped you or hurt you, the Tea Party protests in 2010 were huge. They were nationwide. It was the very first time in my life I'd seen huge protests. I know that when I was much younger, in my teens, there were protests against the Iraq War. There was also the Occupy Wall Street movements that happened after the crash 2010 to 13-14. Because of the results, in my opinion, of the popular vote not winning the election in 2016, Trump has made quite a few people frazzled. What's really sad and pathetic is some cities, let's say like, how do I put this? Let's say that you're in a city where 4,000 people voted, and then the protests, the women's protest happened, and there's 8,000 people marching. There was a large amount of people that just didn't vote, but realized they hated the outcome, but they had no hand in it. And to me, that was really contradictory. I'm getting off track here. So the reason I'm talking about Earth Day today is its significance to today. Now, why is there a March for Science? The United States has seen, and I know all of us can agree on this, we're not really sure what's true and what's not anymore. And media tends to follow whoever gives them the most views. They're not reporting, they're covering is the difference. Any nutjob who says that climate change isn't real is given just as much airtime and just as much shape in the argument or voice in an argument as somebody who does. Because what channels are doing these days is they're not covering the truth. they're covering the controversy. There could be two groups, and one of them is much more informed than the other, but they'll both have the same say, or they'll carry the same amount of weight in an argument. So you've had groups that have been denying climate change or denying the causes of climate change, which has led to people voting in people who continue to deny its existence. This year was the Science March against basically the main reason for the Science March is because at the highest levels of both our legislative and executive branches of government, Paul Ryan, Donald Trump, and Mike Pence are all climate change deniers. They don't believe that humans are responsible for the raising levels of carbon parts per million, or greenhouse gases accumulating in our planet's atmosphere, causing the ice caps to melt, large-scale storms, droughts, floods. Basically, the inconsistencies we've been seeing in the Earth's climate recently have been attributed to man-made change. Now, that is being called into question, and they're actually taking measures to remove programs that are monitoring this change. Trump is threatening to remove that, and maybe even in the process of doing so. Every few mornings, I'll walk to go get coffee, and I always pass by this spot that's near a sound wall along a highway, and it is full of trash. For Earth Day, I dragged my ass out there and filled a couple garbage bags and dragged them over to my dumpster, and I cleaned it up. That's what I did. I felt like it was something that needed to be done, and no one was cleaning it. And I felt like I wanted to be, in the spirit of Earth Day, show that I was willing to do my part. The mentality that many people have is that they believe that they should get everything that they can for them and theirs and screw everybody else, really. There's a mentality, especially in American society, where they believe that they should make as much money as they can, and it doesn't matter what the byproduct is. It doesn't matter who gets hurt by it, as long as, because money is my bottom line, and it should be everyone else's, and if you were in my shoes, you'd feel the same way. So why don't we just leave, no regulations, every man for himself. It's a very damaging way to look at life. It's in conflict with a conservationist mentality in society. Environmental regulation is a good thing. There are many things that rise out of it. Green spaces such as the one that I'm riding around in would not be here if the people had came together and decided, I think that this area on these lakes should be set aside for the public, instead of making only the richest people have properties that bump up right against these lakes. We have nice open green spaces that lower stress levels, they get people out and exercising, they're places of social gathering. There's a lot of pluses. There's a lot of advantages to having green space. But you want the following generations to have what you had, or maybe even more. Humans and industry are constantly in conflict with the environment, because the environment is how we make money. And the more money we have, the bigger the impact we can have in the environment. But on days like Earth Day, people that have very little money can still have a huge impact by showing how they prioritize how we should have industry, at what point is making money too much, and as a society, how can we make sure that the people that come after us have the exact same opportunities that we do to enjoy nature, if not more so. In my head, I believe that's what Earth Day is about. So happy springtime, everybody. Thank you for watching, and I hope you're enjoying the season 2, and you'll see an episode out on Wednesday.